Imagine a king so hated, so filthy and riddled with disease that he literally succumbs to a hideous death, devoured from within by a ruthless plague. Louis XVI, the beloved of France. No, he was the most cursed ruler, and his final days were a nightmare of decay, despair, and death. What if the death of this so-called great king was not clean or noble, but a ghastly, corruptible carnage within his own body? This is France under Louis XVI, a realm steeped in a decaying monarchy. Political chaos simmered while public suffering was rampant. Disease, most notably smallpox, stalked every corner, a constant, brutal reminder of mortality in an age of profound medical ignorance. Amidst this backdrop of nationwide misery, Louis XVI was not revered, but deeply unpopular. He was viewed as weak, untrustworthy, and most damningly, detested by the very court he presided over, by the commoners he supposedly served, and even by members of his own estranged family. Presiding over this fractured court was Louis XVI, a king whose lineage was already marked by scandal and decline. Though ironically known as Louis the Well-Beaded, whispers of ill health and internal decay secretly plagued him. His well-being was in the hands of royal medical advisors, figures who were less qualified healers and more overconfident practitioners of unorthodox, often lethal treatments. Meanwhile, lurking in the opulent shadows was Madame de Pompadour, the royal mistress, a potent symbol of the court's decadence. As the days turned into weeks, the inevitable arrived. Initial symptoms, dismissed or misdiagnosed by the ill-equipped physicians of fever, exhaustion, and then the dreaded pustules began their relentless siege. The king's body, already weakened, started a visible and terrifying deterioration. His skin became covered in a horrifying eruption of blackened, festering sores. The fever raged, driving him into a state of agonizing delirium. This wasn't just illness. It was a ghastly transformation, an image of decay and suffering that spread across his regal form. The external horror was merely a visible manifestation of the consuming fire within. Smallpox wasn't just scarring his skin. It was systematically rotting his internal organs. The king's own body, in its desperate fight, seemed to turn against itself, accelerating the devastating process. At court, the atmosphere grew increasingly morbid. Whispers turned to panicked fear, superstition replaced reason, and a pervasive denial hung in the air as the dying king lay helpless. Centuries later, historians and forensic evidence pieces together the true horror of Louis XV's demise. Medical records, once hidden, and recently uncovered private letters paint a gruesome picture of his agonizing final days. Far from idealized portraits, old paintings and engravings reveal a figure visibly weakened, almost spectral, tangible proof of the internal decay that consumed him. And so, the inevitable arrived not with dignity, but with a grotesque finality. Louis XVI, the King of France, succumbed to smallpox in the most brutal fashion, devoured from within by the relentless plague. His death was not a clean, noble passage, but a horrifying, visceral end. This terrible demise expedited the political instability brewing in France. His visibly weakened state and agonizing death became a potent symbol of the crumbling royal authority, a monarchy decaying just as its king had. Louis XV's legacy is thus irrevocably tainted, not by a noble martyrdom, but by his agonizing end. He stands as a despised, broken figure, a symbol of royal decadence that curdled into decay. He was a king literally consumed by his own body, and figuratively consumed by history's mounting contempt. His grisly death, in the eyes of many, was a harbinger of the violent upheavals on the horizon. Louis XV's death wasn't a clean, divine passage, it was a grotesque, final act of a doomed monarchy. A king eaten alive by the very disease that symbolized the corruption and decline of his whole reign. As we look at the grand regal portraits, let us ponder the dark reality that lies beneath the velvet and gilded facades. Beneath the grandeur, blood, decay, and suffering lurk in history's shadows. This serves as a chilling reminder. Sometimes the most tragic legacy isn't a kingdom's glory, but its slow, inevitable rot from within.